Mikrovli, redeemed in peace, my soul from those that battled me, or with me. Ki berabim hayu imadi, because with many he was with me. The Isal Zebe Gemara Mesechtes Brachos, and this pasuk is brought down the Gemara Mesechtes Brachos. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem said, whoever is involved in Torah and in doing acts of kindness and davens with a minion, Maila ani olav, I am considering it, Ki'ilu p'ta'ani li ulebanai bebeina umes ha'olam. It's as if he redeemed myself, Hashem himself, and my children from amongst the nations of the world. Rashi explains, what does it mean they redeemed in peace? It's going on the one who is involved in matters of peace. What are matters of peace? It's going on Torah. It's called matters of peace, words of peace. Like it says, its ways are ways of pleasantness, and its paths are paths of peace. So therefore, we have Torah hinted at in this pasuk, that Shalom is what makes the pada, makes the redemption. Another thing that we have in this pasuk, v'chein gemilas chasadim, also gemilas chasadim namin Shalom hu. Gemilas chasadim, doing acts of kindness, brings peace between people. It's not just because there's a pasuk; it's a logical idea of peace. So therefore, that's another Shalom that causes the pada, that causes the redemption. And Barabim hayu imadi, and the idea that many he was with me, who inyan mispalol imatzibur, that's the idea of davening with a minion, shispalalu imi, that they davened with me. So therefore we have the three things over here. Torah, gemilas chasadim, and davening with a tzibur brings about the pada, brings about the redemption. It's considered as if he redeemed me and my children. Move on. From this is understood, since there are three components that bring about the pediya, so the Rebbe extends that from that we can understand. Also in the redemption, there could be three types of a redemption. These three types of redemption are corresponding to the three types of avodah from the perspective of the person that becomes redeemed, and that we derive from this pasuk. What are the three types of avodah? Torah, gemilas chasadim, and tefillah. These three things: Torah, doing acts of kindness, and davening. That there's a pediya that's in the way of peace. The simple meaning of the pasuk. Before we learn the Gemara, that how is the pediya occurring? What makes it be considered redemption, or how is it considered redemption? When you have shalom, either shalom of Torah learning or shalom of gemilas chasadim, in the simple meaning of the pasuk means that pada, the manner of the pediya, the manner of the redemption was in the way of shalom. And that's one type of redemption. Then there's a second type of redemption in the middle of the wide lines. V'yesh pediya ide mechama. There's a redemption through a war. Like the pasuk goes on to say, mikravli, from those that engaged me in battle. So you have pada v'shalom, you have a peaceful redemption. That's one type of redemption. And then you have mikrav, from a war. You have a redemption that takes place through battle, through fighting. Between those two, the Rebbe says, there is a middle ground as well. There's an intermediary between these two extremes, between peace and war. It says in line 18, V'yesh pediya b'if memutza, and then there is a redemption in a middle ground. Move of a Pirish Rashi in the Cherev Shal Shalom, like it's explained in Rashi, concerning a sword of peace. It says in the pasuk that Cherev lo yaver ba'artzachem, when it says about the brachas that the Yidden will receive for following in the Hashem's laws. So it says that a sword will not pass through your land. And what type of sword? So Rashi explains, we're talking about a cherev shel shalom, a sword of peace. In other words, that they're not fighting you, but they're going into your land, or they're passing through your land to fight with someone else, which was actually a big problem historically with Eretz Yisrael, that it was always like in the center of warring powers. There was the Assyrian Empire wanting to fight the Egyptian Empire. How did they come one to another? So they're crossing through Eretz Yisrael. So in a very practical sense, it's a very big bracha that you don't even have a sword of peace passing through. But regardless, the point that the Rebbe wants to bring down over here, shezel memutza ben shalom lekrav, a sword of peace, that's an intermediate level. It's not fully peace, but it's also not fully war. There is a sword over there, but there's no war, there's no battle. So therefore, the Rebbe now explains this and is going to connect it with these three types of avodah. Behind this means where's by the person that does his service. The idea of being involved in Torah and doing acts of kindness and davening with a minyan, through that occurs all three matters of being redeemed in peace, being from those that battle me, which is a war, and the intermediary level of the sword of peace. It's just good to point out that the pasuk only explicitly speaks about peace and war. It doesn't explain about the intermediary level, but since we're dealing with three levels, and also how does one and always when there's like two extremes, there's always a level in between. So the Rebbe inserts also a third level, the level of the cherev shel shalom. 2 lines on the bottom of the page, line 23. Since the beginning of the avodah is in a way of someone that's involved in Torah, that's how the pasuk begins, and that's also how the Maimer Chazal say, Kala Oisik B'Torah and Gmil Chasadim Mispal Matzibur. So it begins with the idea of being involved in Torah study. Zai Poil in Yonah Torah. So then the Torah study influences and affects Shegam Hagmil Chasadim Vatfil. Also the doing acts of kindness and the davening you ba'oifen. They should be in the same manner or in the same way how it comes out from the idea of Torah. Similar to what's explained concerning that within 200 there is 100. The same thing, since Torah is the beginning of everything and it includes everything, so it will therefore include the rest of Gemil Chasadim and the idea of davening with the minyan. So therefore, since Torah being the first influences the following things that are derived and come from it afterwards, therefore, therefore the actual redemption, in the way of redemption and peace, it's in such a manner that there isn't even a sword of peace. It's like the continuation of the pasuk after it says, I will place peace in the land. In other words, in Parshas B'chukoisai, where it says, in B'chukoisai aleichem. So first it says, I will place peace in the land. Shazel, in the Paul of Shalom, that's similar to what it says, I will redeem in peace, or he redeemed in peace my soul. And v'cherev shlo yisaveh ba'artzachem, and it continues, and a sword will not pass through your land. Afilu cherev shel shalom, even a sword of peace, which means that you have the different levels that follow from the first level of the peace. Meaning that the Torah is connected with the peace, and just like Torah influences Gemil Sasadim and Tefillah, the same thing, the peace influences the other types of redemption. So he says, Shezehu, the idea of the peace that excludes all types of levels, even a sort of peace. It's ultimate peace. It's no even intermediary level of peace, but complete peace. That is the type of redemption. That's what Torah accomplishes. Torah accomplishes not only is we don't have to do the redemption through war, but also the sword of peace is not there, but it's complete peace. Meaning, that even in his doing acts of kindness and his davening is recognizable that he's permeated with his involvement in Torah, like it's explained in many places, the details of this, how the Torah learning influences the way he does Gemil Sasadim, and his Torah learning influences the way he does his davening. So now he goes in the second paragraph, line 11, based on this, that the Torah is there to influence the Gemil Sasadim and davening, and the peace of Torah manifests itself even in the other types of redemption, or the redemption of Torah, which is a redemption of peace, is supposed to influence the other types of redemptions. With this will be understood. Also, we can understand the order. Why does it say the person that's learning Torah and doing acts of kindness and davening with a minyan? Seemingly, if we look at a person's day, that's not the order of the day. The Lachuri says in line 13, seemingly I say that avodas ha'adam b'yayim hu ba'ofen shetchilahu hu inyanat fil. The order how a person's service during the day is in a way that initially he begins with davening. And only after davening is the idea of Torah. Like the language used in the Gemara at the end of Mesechtes Barachos, Beis HaKnesses, you're supposed to go from the Beis HaKnesses, which is a place designated for tefillah, for davening, LeBeis HaMedrash, to the house of learning, the house of study, the place that's designated for Torah. And only once you davened and you have a shir in Torah after davening, then you do the custom of the world, meaning you go to work. And what's the purpose of the work? Tzedakah. Shekasher meaning tzedakah. That's connected with the idea of tzedakah. So now the Rebbe is going to say, what do you mean? We find also tzedakah before davening, and Adrab, we're supposed to give tzedakah before davening, and we also find Torah before davening. So he's saying these are all part of the process of making the davening better. It's not about the mitzvah of tzedakah itself. It's not about the mitzvah of limud Torah itself. The mitzvah of limud Torah itself is following davening. The mitzvah of tzedakah is following that. The tzedakah before davening and the learning before davening is to help out the davening. Let's see what the Rebbe says in the brackets about this. Line 18 by the brackets. The giving of tzedakah prior to davening is not so much about the mitzvah of tzedakah. It's not its soul. It's not its purpose. The purpose is not tzedakah for itself. Rather, the purpose of the tzedakah that a person gives before davening, it should be in a way that I should be able to see your face, see Hashem's face. How can I see Hashem's face if I first give tzedakah? Okay, like the Gemara says, Rabbi Lazar Yoav Prut Ani v'Hadan Matzli. Rabbi Lazar first would give a prut, a coin, to a poor person, and afterwards he davened. Omar, he said, to explain this custom, Ksiv, it says, Ani b'tzedek echza panecha, that I, with tzedek, meaning tzedakah, that's how I will see your face. So by davening, it's a time when we have to see Hashem's face, we have to greet Hashem, we have to speak to Hashem. So how do I greet Hashem? By first giving tzedakah. So what's the point of the tzedakah? It's only a preface. It's an introduction to the main show, to the Exapanecha, Reisha Iker, who Exapanecha, the tzedakah that we're giving before davening. The primary point is, I should see your face. V'loi kol kacha ein the b'tzedek. It's not so much the emphasis on the tzedek part, on the tzedakah part. In a similar vein, the fact that we learn chassidus before davening, that's also for the sake of the davening. So too also in the Torah that we study before davening, like the Alter Rebbe says, that this is one of the three preparations that a person has to do for davening, is he has to learn inyanim that awaken him to the love and awe of Hashem. The Torah we're learning before davening is not for Torah's sake. It's not to fulfill the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, because before davening is not a time for the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, just like before davening is not a time for the mitzvah of tzedakah. But rather, the Torah before davening, the chassidus that we learn, is to enable us, and it's in service of that the davening should be a good davening, a better davening. As opposed to the main idea of Torah is only and primarily after davening. So therefore, since that's the case, so the order of the person's day, again, to repeat the question, what is first davening, then Torah learning, basic necessary based on medrash, and then Hanik ben minig darach, you earn the money to give tzedakah. So why does the pasuk say it out of order? Say first the Torah learning, and then it says the others. So he says on the top of the next page Zayin, the explanation of this matter is the Kivin Shemaimer Hazal, since this Maimer Chazal, whoever's involved in Torah is referring to the pasuk. He redeemed in peace. The Kravli, that over there it's also mentioned the idea that he will be in a battle with me. And therefore there's also the manner of the intermediary of the sword of peace. Like we said before, it's mentioned that there will be a battle. And it's also talking about peace. So the Rebbe extends that and extrapolates from that. How do you go, or what's the in-between, between these two poles, between these two extremes? It's the sword of peace. And despite those two levels that there's the level of the redemption through battle, and redemption from a sword of peace or through a sword of peace. And despite those two other things that there are, not just a peaceful redemption, is affected the idea of redeeming in peace in its perfect state. The redemption and peace is so great that you don't even have the sword of peace passing through in your land. So since the point is to have that highest, most level of peace, therefore it says initially, whoever is involved in Torah, that's the first thing that the Chazal say. Meaning by putting it first, they're meaning that Torah should influence everything else. The involvement in Torah. That through that becomes the redemption and peace, without even needing a sword of peace. It permeates also his service of doing acts of kindness and davening with a minyan. So now he's going to explain this more specifically. What are these three things in Avodah, and what do they have to do with Torah, Tefillah, and Gemilas Hasadim? Ois Beis, line 12. To explain these three things of a war and the sword of peace and peace itself, and their connection, their connection to the Torah, and the avodah of davening, and doing acts of kindness. We understood according to what's explained in many places. Also in the Hemshech, the series of Mamorim of the year Tafshin Daled, which in Tafshin Lamed Daled was Vayhi B'Shloshim Shana. It was 30 years since that Hemshech. concerning the service of a person, that the person needs to affect through his service in the world. So there's three different ways of his impacting in the way he does his avodah in the world. Kifishi mitzad Torah, as it is from the perspective of Torah. Kifishi mitzad tefillah, the way it is from the perspective of davening. Or kifishi mitzad mitzvahs, and the way it is from the perspective of mitzvahs. Sheklalusam hu inyan gemilas chasadim u'tzedakah, that in general it's the idea of doing acts of kindness and tzedakah. In other words, even though earlier we're talking about doing acts of kindness, and acts of kindness is like the pinnacle of that is tzedakah, but in a more general sense, when we talk about the gemilas chasadim, we're talking about the idea of mitzvahs in general, as we've many times said, the association between mitzvahs and tzedakah and so on. So what's the difference of these three things, Torah, tefillah, and mitzvahs, in their impact in the person and the world? Shachiluk b'neim, who the difference between them is, sha'avoida shaydei Torah nikras birur b'derech menucha. The avoida through Torah is called refining in a way of tranquility, in a way of rest. Shezeu shalom amiti, that is true peace. We'll explain all this soon. Va'abir de tefillah nikra cherev shel shalom, and the refinement that davening does in the world is called a sword of peace. Va'abir shaydei mitzvahs hu bir shaydei milchama, and the refinement of the world that's accomplished through mitzvahs is the refinement that happens through war. Since mitzvahs are primarily connected with the physicality of the world, in such a manner that we need to take the physical of the world and transform it into a matter of a mitzvah, top of the fourth page. Since one needs to transform the physical of the world into mitzvah, that's the point of the mitzvah, the engaging and the involvement with the physical world. So a person needs to take the mitzvah and then clothe it into the world. Now this is going to take a fight. This is a battle. The physicality opposes it. The physical doesn't want to be transformed. The physical doesn't want to become holy. But one needs to battle with it. One needs to engage in a war with it. Therefore, the general refinement that takes place through mitzvahs, it's not like the birur that is through Torah, which is a peaceful birur, because Torah is just the opposite. The person is entirely not engaged with the world. They're talking about the world. They're referring to the world. And through referring to the world, they are doing birurim, like we said, like it says in the Geras HaKodesh, in the end of Tanya, that the person elevates the halacha, and that was concealed in Klippa. But he's not engaging with the world and have to deal with the challenges of the world, that the world wants to pull him down. And also the birur of mitzvahs is not like the birur that takes place through davening, which we said earlier is cherev shel shalom, a sword of peace. But rather, since mitzvahs is the only thing that has direct contact with the physicality of the world, even davening, where I have to battle, might have shabahamis during davening and so on, but I'm not in direct contact with the physicality of the world. So over there, by mitzvahs, it's birur de mechama, it's a refinement that takes place through war, because over there I'm actually engaging with the physical, and the physical is resisting, so I need to coerce it, I need to use the idea of war.